so there's lots of different ways you can do a take on it and then make it your own and then become known for something, and then hopefully people will come back for that.
There are some names in Australian food that are synonymous with joy, with sweet treats, with creativity, with escapades in pastry, dessert, chocolate. One of those names is our guest today, Darren Purchese. He is a judge on the upcoming new series of The Great Australian Bake Off. He's always got so much on the go. Darren, welcome to the show.
Hi, Dani. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I've watched your career for so long. I mean, really grateful to interact with you in all kinds of different ways. The one that I just recalled today as I was preparing for this chat was toasty competition.
I know. I think long after I'm gone on this world, I think I might be known, if anything, for my toasties, which I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but I love toasties, as you know.
I think toasties are a great thing to have threaded through your life as one of the main themes. We introduced you as a pastry chef, but tell us about your love of a great sandwich.
Oh, it goes way back, probably longer than I even thought that I wanted to be a chef. I was always, I don't know, pimping up sandwiches at home or putting cheese on top of bread and bubbling it under the grill. So it's something I've always grew up with, and it's a Sunday night treat, but it's crept into my professional life over the years, and I even wrote a book on the subject, so it's a subject dear to my heart.
What do you reckon makes a great toasty?
I reckon bread's really important. It needs to be fairly dry, so it doesn't kind of absorb all of the inside, so you want it sort of crispy on the outside, and obviously great filling, but probably keep it simple, cheese and onion, Worcester sauce, something like that. Make sure your cheese is a good melting cheese, and everything room temperature when you're kind of preparing it, so the internal gets melted. So just a couple of little tips like that. You could use butter on the outside or mayonnaise, some people do, but just great bread, great cheese, and then add your own spin.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I mean, the onions and the Worcestershire sauce, that is so English. I'm all about kimchi in my toasties these days. What do you reckon of that?
I absolutely love it. Yeah, that is something I would never have tried when I first started making toasties. I wouldn't have known what it was. And but yeah, it goes so well. It's just an absolute no-brainer. So yeah, whatever I've got in there. I mean, I've used miso as well. That goes really well. So, yeah, it's pretty good. So, it's anything savoury, umami. Lick a Marmite or Vegemite in there as well. You never know. What a toast is all about. You can put your own spin on it. Everyone's got their favourite fillings and favourite flavourings, and you can do it at home, and you don't need to be, a specky chef to come up with something absolutely sensational.
So, well, speaking of being a specky chef, when I think about you and the dessert world, I definitely do think of spectacular creations. Can you tell us a bit about your journey, Darren? I know there's been a few steps along the pathway, but tell us what got you so interested in the world of pastry.
Yeah, well, going right back, I spent some time in kitchens, but my first serious kitchen job was at the Savoy Hotel in London, and I went for an open day because they were recruiting, and there was a chef there who was demonstrating how to make a Peach Melba, which for some of your listeners might not know, was actually invented at the Savoy Hotel in London by a chef called Escoffier a very long time ago, and he invented it for an Australian, I didn't realise at the time, Dame Nellie Melba, who was an opera singer, and it was something with peaches and raspberry coulis and vanilla ice cream, and add this theatrical sugar cage on top. And I think he invented it for her to help soothe her vocal cords before she hopped off down to Covent Garden to perform. And it was a classic, and I just kind of fell in love with the story, and I fell in love with the history, and I just really wanted to know how to make it. So I got myself a job there and found myself in the pastry kitchen. And then that was really the start of my journey. And I didn't realize that in the future that I would end up living and working in Australia. So there's kind of a cool little connection there. That first dish that really inspired me was the Peach Melba.
Wow, I love that. And it's also so great that you have this instant idea that dessert is therapeutic and you need it to get on with your life. So I really love that as well. What is it that brought you to Australia?
I met my wife, Cath Claringbold, who's a chef. I know you know Cath, and some of your listeners may know her as well. I actually met her in Brisbane a long time. I'm going to say 2004. It's a funny story, one I've told before. So if you've heard it, sorry. But there was a chef in London called Shane Osborne, who had, I think he had Michelin stars and he had a restaurant in London, and he was due to fly out to the Brisbane masterclass in 2004, but his passport hadn't been renewed. So I think 2 days out of the event, they were scrambling to find a replacement for him, and they called my head chef at the hotel I was working at, a hotel called the Bentley Hotel, and they asked him if he would come out and present, and he said, yeah, only if I can take Darren, because he knew I'd get all the mise en place done for him and he can schmooze. So literally 2 days later, I found myself in Australia, and I know that this wasn't in my, whole. I had no idea I could get here. It was out of the realms of possibility for me. And I just landed here and I thought, wow, this is awesome. Everyone's so into food. The ingredients are amazing. And I bumped into Cath on the first night, who was opening a restaurant in Brisbane, and we kind of hit it off, and we were at a cocktail party and we said, should we get out of here? And we spent the week together, and I went back to London and said, that's it, I'm found a girl, I'm moving to Australia. And it took me about a year later, and I arrived in Melbourne, and the weather wasn't the same.
Yeah, she didn't mention that.
What's this? I had this idea that it's just 40 degrees everywhere. But she handed me the good food guide. She said, well, you better get a job. And I opened it up and I thought, right, I'll start at the top. So number one was Vue de Monde, and I contacted Shannon, and I literally got a job the next day.
That is amazing. So what was the experience? So where was Vue when you landed there, and what was it all like? What was it like at the time?
It was a great kitchen, really strong brigade. It was in Little Collins Street, and I went in as sort of pastry chef, but Shannon had ideas to open Bistro Vue and the cafe, so I helped in setting that up. But awesome brigade, really great chefs there when I was there. There's a chef called Ryan Clift, who is just a mega star in Singapore now, and owns so many restaurants. I think Josh Lewis was there, who's got Fleet up in Byron, and Matthew Arbe was there, and he's now chef de cuisine of Gordon Ramsay, so he's holding 3 Michelin stars. Mark Briggs from Sardine was there, so we had a really, really awesome brigade. And yeah, it was just so much fun, and I was exposed to new ingredients and new ideas that I hadn't really sort of seen in London.
And what kind of desserts were happening at Vue at the time?
We were trying to, we were deconstructing stuff and coming up with flavors, but in a new way. I was trying to bring some of my desserts from London and incorporating that, and it was just a really fun time, really creative time. Shannon was, a force in the kitchen and had all these ideas. Ryan did a lot of menu development, and we would sort of kind of work on, when the restaurant was shut, we would go in and work on dishes together. And yeah, it was really great, and I look back on those times really fondly.
Yeah, it sounds like a great time to land there, and yeah, certainly landed right in the thick of it to come to a new city.
Yeah, I did. I had no idea. I was pretty ignorant when I arrived in Australia. I was working in London, I'd worked in France, and I'd done stuff over there, and I kind of had this attitude that I kind of knew a lot, and I wouldn't say I was big-headed, but I was ignorant to other cuisines quite a lot when I came to Australia, because of course such a diverse population here and not weighed down by tradition. So everyone's being really creative and the audience is receptive to new things. So it was a real eye opener when I landed in Australia, and it wasn't just some of the ingredients I hadn't seen before, but it was just I was amazed by the quality of the cuisine and the restaurants that were around. I just thought, wow, how do we never hear about this back in Europe? So yeah, honestly, it was crazy.
It's so interesting because, I mean, so many Australian chefs would have been floating around kitchens in Europe at the time. But but it's funny how, were you one of those guys you were expecting to see kangaroos hopping down the street and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I was a little bit, and I was a bit disappointed. I couldn't believe the weather in Melbourne. I felt, wow, what have I come from? Because I'm from the south of England, so the weather's not that bad. But it was just a real eye opener, especially Asian cuisine. I hadn't really been exposed to that a lot in London. It was some of the ingredients were quite rudimentary, and it was always done in like an English style. And I came over here and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And the more I learned while I was over here, the more I realised I don't really know anything. It was like the whole world was opening up to me.
And it was, Cath at the time was all about Middle Eastern as well. So was that a sort of eye opener for you too?
Absolutely, yeah. I had no idea, and I hadn't really eaten a lot of that stuff, and I went to her restaurants, and it was absolutely beautiful. Cath's an amazing cook, and I guess because she's female, it was kind of slightly different to a male style of sort of heavy meat driven, dryish Middle Eastern food. It was sort of a little bit more saucy and more of an emphasis on vegetables and salads, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I've learned absolute heaps from Cath. She's been one of my biggest food inspirations.
Yeah, she's an amazing cook, and I just remember so many dishes from her restaurants fondly. I think she's the first person that gave me a recipe for harissa, which I still use.
Oh, good. I'll tell her that. She'll be very pleased. She's I guess I'm the extrovert of our relationship, and she's more of the introvert. And but it certainly doesn't mean she hasn't got any less awesome content that I have. I'm more comfortable putting myself out there, so I'll tell her that. And she gets back in the kitchen every now and again, and she creates something absolutely amazing. So I'm very proud of her.
Well, Cath, of course, came and worked with you at your pastry business, Burch Purchese, which you only recently closed your store in South Yarra in Melbourne. Can you talk about the journey of your own business?
Yeah. Oh, it's still very new that we closed the business, and we just feel really proud of our achievements and really sort of happy that we created something that so many people really enjoyed. And I kind of feel that it's come to a timely end. There's lots of reasons why a business can come to an end. There's economic decisions, there's external decisions, there's things like COVID. But I think essentially we'd come to an end of what we could do there. My creativity was it wasn't stifled, but I'd had so many products on the menu that were hits that I kind of felt that I couldn't change them. So I was feeling a little bit restricted in what I could actually make, because a lot of the things I wanted to make were not applicable in that restaurant or that cafe. And I think because we were a single business, we hadn't ever wanted to roll out. It was very much hands-on for Cath and I. So it was hard for us to do other things. So I think the time was right for us to wrap it up, and we look back on 12 amazing years, and we had a final week of so many customers coming in and saying thank you. And there were customers coming in bringing their kids who we made their wedding cake, and then now we've been making their kids' birthday cakes for 9-10 years. So it was really special, and we feel very grateful that we had that opportunity to do that, but we're really excited now for the future.
Yeah, I love it. Well, for people who perhaps don't know your work, like, could you describe your style and approach to desserts?
Yeah, I guess because most of my background was restaurants, working in restaurants, even if it was in a hotel, I'd usually in the restaurant of the hotel. So restaurant desserts were kind of my thing. And when I'd opened Burch Purchese, it was after working for Shannon of Vue de Monde. I'd worked at Phoenix with Gary and Ray. I'd done Guillaume at the Opera House. So after those three, I was like, I've got to do my own thing. I need my own kitchen. So I applied my restaurant plated dessert expertise to basically a cake shop. I'd never really worked in a like cake shop before, or a bakery type thing, although I'd worked in baking departments. So I just try to apply those restaurant flavors that I loved and the plated desserts that I knew were popular, and try to apply them into kind of a take-home setting. And I think we created something fairly new at the time, and we kind of didn't really go down the traditional route of a cake shop. And it seemed to work. There was a lot of hits, but there was a lot of misses as well. But that all comes with learning and growing as a person and as a chef. But yeah, that's it really. I think I've kind of, I wouldn't say matured, but I've changed my view on food a little bit. I'm kind of a bit more. I want my recipes to be more accessible to people, so I'm trying to create things that people can recreate at home, that it doesn't take them sort of 3 days. So I'm kind of going full circle, you know. So I was known for the fancy stuff, but I really do love the classics, and I love simple baking, and yeah, I just love to bake.
That's so interesting you say that, Darren, because I do recall when I was doing my first Thermomix cookbook, I asked you for a recipe and you very generously obliged. But when I got it, it was 6 pages long. It was for the extraordinary Lego cake. So in the shape of a Lego block. And there were, dozens of steps. So it was a little bit overwhelming for me, but the part where I really lost it was where it was to take your spray gun and start spraying the cake. And I was thinking, I think I asked you, like, what? And you're like, yeah, you just can get them at Bunnings or whatever. And I was thinking, I don't have a place where I can spray cakes in my domestic kitchen. And I think we're going to need to strip this recipe back a bit, which we did. And the flavors are extraordinary. I can't remember it all. It was like white chocolate and green tea, I think.
I think there might have been lime in there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, some lime. It was beautiful. We made a sort of home version of it. But I don't know, like, I think it's great that you were making things and selling them in the shop that I could no way make at home. I mean, that is one of the pleasures of desserts. But of course, yeah, the classics have a place as well.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that recipe. I do remember it. I thought you might bring it up today. It was.
Did you?
I'm cringing a little bit because I do remember sending that to you, and it was just pages of just technical stuff. And I just thought, and I remember you edited it very professionally to something that would fit into a cookbook. And I remember thinking, wow, maybe I need to be, if I want to make myself a bit more accessible, maybe I need to look at how I write recipes. So I have changed a little bit. I've evolved over time, and but I think B&P was really great for products that you really couldn't make at home, and it's a luxury and a one-off. And I guess, I really want to now start preaching different recipes, and I want to branch out into savoury food, which I love, and I couldn't really do both. So I've kind of, we've put B&P to bed, and now I'm embarking on the next chapter of my career, and Cath and I are working on a food content website where there'll just be awesome recipes that you can absolutely replicate at home without a spray gun or a spray booth.
Yeah. I mean, I learned so much doing that book, and I mean, it's really touching to think that my edit it was a tiny part of your journey to where you are now. But I mean, it is all about learning. I think chefs so often, you learn so much and you want to display it, and why wouldn't you? But then, yeah, there is often this sort of stripping back process that happens as you continue.
It comes with age, when you're young and you want to be known and you want to go out and do crazy stuff and just make a name for yourself. Then it's easy for you to go on this journey of coming up with really specky stuff. But as you mature, as you get a bit older, you realise that for longevity and accessibility, and for people being able to really enjoy what you do, you need to kind of make it a bit more accessible. So I'm happy that I've had my crazy period, I guess, and I'm not saying I'm slowing down in any way, but I'm just going to kind of focus on helping other people become better bakers and better pastry chefs.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that in a sec. But I will just say that I just want to acknowledge that I had so many great experiences eating your fancy desserts. And I remember like being at functions and events, and there'd be these incredible Burch and Purchese spreads with just and you knew that everything was handmade and mostly by you guys, and that you'd be driving up and back to Sydney with a boot full of I don't know what, and like just the hours that you guys put in. And I'd say, like, for me as a keen eater, I so appreciated all the hard work. So yeah, congratulations on everything that you achieved.
Thank you. That's very kind. We did. We gave it everything, and we were really into it, and we were really proud of what we managed to achieve. We were proud of the fact that everything was made on site. So all of those events we used to do, I remember we did the Grand Prix many years, but we would recreate it all in the studio and take it down onto track. So 10,000 desserts a day we were doing at one point. Yeah, I know. And it's a tiny kitchen. We had a small team. So, yeah, I'm glad you appreciate it. And I'm glad we managed to spread some sweet joy to Melbourne and other states as well.
Yeah, 100%. So speaking more about home baking and people who are getting into it deep, let's talk about Great Australian Bake Off. What attracted you to this show?
I love Bake Off. I mean, I love cooking shows. I love food media. But I just love Bake Off because it's just feel good. It's absolutely no drama. We're not trying to make people cry or anything. I've been a fan of the show for the UK version, and then I followed the Australian version, and to just have the opportunity to step into Matt and Maggie's shoes, just an absolute dream. So it was a no-brainer when I was asked. It's absolutely the best job, and I just love seeing people from diverse cultural backgrounds showing me stuff I haven't seen before, but also love passing on some of my knowledge to help making some of Australia's best amateur bakers even better.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, are there things that you see over and over again, like tips that you find yourself repeating? Like, where do people generally get themselves in holes?
It's the jet. Well, I guess it's the fine line when you're on a competition. When you're doing a competition, you want to wow, so you want to do as much as possible, but you got to make sure it fits in the time that they've got. So that I'm always saying, plan what you're going to do and just plan your time and try and do as much as you possibly can, and make sure you can finish it, because otherwise you might as well do something really simple and finish with 20 minutes left, and then have all of this mess and all of these part components at the end of a 3-hour bake. So often I see people struggling with their timing and their planning because they're not used to working in a kitchen to deadlines. So that's always a fun one, and it's always something I'm trying to get across to them.
Yeah, I love that. And so for someone, perhaps a home cook or even a savoury chef who hasn't done much pastry, what is, like, where would they start, do you reckon? What are some good things to start with, to learn with and to enjoy along the way? Yeah,
I mean, I was a pastry chef, but I always wanted to know the savoury side, because I always wanted to I didn't want anyone to know more than me, type thing. I wanted to have a conversation with another chef and know what I was talking about. So I always made it my mission to kind of know what they know, as well as the fact that I'm interested in food all the time. I'm absolutely passionate about food, so I really wanted to know, and I cook in all my spare time as well. So I would say if you're a savoury chef, or definitely get into the pastry kitchen and start knowing some of the basic recipes that you need to know, and just have fun with it. And there's so much material available to people these days. When I was first starting out, there was no I know I sound old now. No Instagram, no virtually no internet. I would just be trying to find this mythical cookbook by someone, and then I'll just try and find the recipe I was looking for, and then invariably the recipe I wanted wasn't in the book, but I would just make everything out of someone's book, and that's how I sort of taught myself. But there's no right or wrong way of how you want to go about it. You just need to be passionate at what you do, and whether it's bread making or pastry making, or you want to make really great cakes, go and seek out those ones that are known for that particular field, and then just start recreating theirs. And then once you know that, you can put your own spin on it.
Yeah, love that. And thinking about desserts in restaurants these days, I'd love to get your perspective on it, because I feel like people often don't have dessert, which I think is a bit sad, because it's such a great way to finish a meal, and it's also it's just such a great series of skills that people are able to put on a plate. But then at the same time, I think that a lot of kitchens aren't able to employ a dedicated pastry chef, and desserts can also feel like a bit of an afterthought. And I just don't know how many panna cottas I need in my life. What's the balance? What place do you think desserts have on a restaurant menu these days?
Yeah, it's tricky. I don't know if I'm qualified to answer this, because I have not worked in a restaurant for over 12, 13 years now. So, but my take on it is desserts are a great end to the meal. Depending on the restaurant that you've got, and you need to factor in economic issues. People don't have as a lot of disposable income as they did. So perhaps incorporating a dessert in an actual, assembled menu, rather than having dessert menu separate, incorporating it in your menu, that will make sure that more people are ordering that. I know that lots of restaurants don't have the luxury of a dedicated pastry chef these days, so it's more important than ever for chefs to know both sides of the kitchen, because gone are the days where you got sort of 4 pastry chefs hanging around waiting for a dessert order to come in. Everyone's sort of mucking in and doing both sides now, which I think is really good. But I guess if you really want to try and maximise profit in a restaurant, I would say that keep your dessert menu fairly small, because who can afford to have 10 different desserts these days, and try and create some sort of signature dessert that could possibly be changed throughout the season, but something you get known for. And then that enables word to get round, and people really want to come and try this thing. And also, if the dessert's on the menu for a while, then the kind of brigade will know how to make it, and they could all make it competently. And then you can, like I say, you can change that dessert with, seasonal flavors or native flavors or whatever you want, to kind of change it up throughout the year, so it's not the same thing on the menu. That's my advice at the moment. But I do eat at quite a few restaurants, and I'm always looking at the dessert menu first to try and see if I need to save room.
Yeah, interesting. What kind of dessert would make you want to save room?
I don't know. I get asked all the time what my favourite dessert is, and I'm always stumped, because I love the classics. I love, I guess lemon tart it always comes to mind, and I'm just being very basic here, but like twists on that. I love tangy desserts. I love desserts that are not too sweet. I love a good balance. As a pastry chef, I really love to see technique from the kitchen. I love to see different techniques on a menu, and different methods and different ways of cooking things. But often I will just choose the lemon tart or the tiramisu or the chocolate, whatever it is, because I know I'm going to get that hit. So it's quite a thankless task being a pastry chef sometimes, because you've got all these mad ideas and you want to create something really amazing. But I think a lot of people, especially these days with money, they choose the thing they know they're going to get the bang for their buck.
Yeah, it's so true. And yeah, there was some sparks going off in my brain when you said the words tiramisu, because it's just always so good. Or, it should be. It should be.
Yeah, it should be. It's not always good, but I've seen it a lot. And I've seen it. The reason I said it is because I just keep seeing it everywhere at the moment. And, it's just a thing. And like I say, you could do a twist on that. It doesn't just have to be a coffee tiramisu. If your restaurant wants to get known for something, you could have the classic tiramisu. You could, change the flavour up, change the sponge up in the middle, change the cream. So there's lots of different ways you can do a take on it and then make it your own and then become known for something. And then hopefully people will come back for that.
Yeah. Love it. Good tips. Daz, so good to catch up with you. All the best with the show. Can't wait to watch it and, see what you and Cath do next. I'm sure it's going to be delicious.
Yeah, and thanks to you too, Dani. Not just for this, but on behalf of the whole hospitality industry, because you're just a shining light and just a really great voice. And I know that hospitality operators all over just really do look up to you and for the positivity you promote.
Oh, thank you. That's super kind. I'm very embarrassed, so we better wrap it up right now. Thanks, Dad. See you.
See ya.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This